Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the virtual racing compound. My name is Hasse Rømer, and I'm here alone for round 7 of the virtual GT of the Sunday GT Masters. Obviously, it is from Road Atlanta. Brought to you, of course, yet again by Grip Engineering and by SIMRACER Coin as well. A pleasure it is to be here, even though I couldn't be joined. A shame that is, of course, by Jack Werrell, but we'll get by and we'll get through it. The Road Atlanta, looking at it here, one of my absolute favorite tracks to go around, and as well to watch cars go around as well, because it's just an everlasting challenge and you rarely get a moment of respite, except maybe for the back straight, but that'll just be a few short seconds, and often you find yourself well, just either being thrown off of it or dragged in by the wonderful flow of the circuit indeed. Anyway, we are just about to get into qualifying as usual as we drop in here. Gaston Maceroni, quickest so far in practice. Extremely close with the lap times though, between himself and teammate Nicolas Cocato, then Chris Boland, Pete Plastow, Nick Mclaughlin, and Sander Kaffa at the top of the standings. And speaking about the standings, I wonder if the points have indeed been updated. Doesn't it look like it, does it now? But I'll speak you through it because I do think we have the standings, or I have the standings here at least in a text format sort of thing. So you can at least get an idea of just what's going on. And I think it is indeed Chris Boland still in the lead ahead of Nicolas Cocato, then Matt Forrest, Gaston Maceroni, and Martin de Jong in there as well. In the Ford GT, the top 5, not really seeing much change, although it's 12 points of a lead now for Chris Boland at the head of the field. Somewhat slender, you might say. Certainly contestable. That will be very true, I think, for the rest of this season. It's been close so far. It's going to be close for the remainder of it as well. In the AM standings, it's Cody Steek still landing, still leading, still landing. I hope he is. I hope he isn't flying too much though either. But he's leading, and he's leading by a mere margin of 5 points ahead of Giambattista Chiacchetti, then Craig Thompson, Orkun Kolak, and Chris Pio rounds off the top 5 in the AM class as well. It's the Canadian! It's Nick Mclaughlin, the Canadian indeed, for virtual racing compound in the Ferrari as he goes in to the chicane, and the right-hander that marks the final bits and bobs of a lap. And for those uninitiated so far, let's just go on board with Mr. Mclaughlin here for a lap, or what we will make of a lap. We might just not be able to make it, but turn 1 up the hill indeed, and a very difficult entrance to turn 3. Oh, crested nicely though. A stable car is going to do you wonders here through the S's. And this left-hander takes a little bit too much of the inside curve there, Mclaughlin. You want to stay off going at least too much onto it. Then the slight banking here on the right-hander, and into the hairpin. Just don't cut that grass. And then the long back straight. Certainly the place for overtaking, and you really want to make sure that you get a good exit coming out of that final hairpin and onto the back straight, down towards the chicane, down the hill here, and then up the hill again. Heavy braking left and then right, double 90 degrees. Again here you want to aim for a good exit, then the blind crest the kink across it, and then flat out for the final corner as well. And that is a lap of Road Atlanta indeed. And as we say that, we go into qualifying. 15 minutes is, as always. And I think we'll have a lot of traffic and a lot of drivers contesting the space that could indeed be tightly packed out there, but we'll see just how bad it gets here. Mclaughlin is out, as well as a few others there. Chris Boland just ahead of him. So some of the drivers there at the top of the standings certainly wanting to go out early indeed and get those laps in, which is by all means an account very understandable. They're the RAF Motorsports Lamborghini Huracan GT3, which has indeed served Chris Boland very, very well over the course of the season so far. Oh, and what's this? We've had a problem, I'm afraid, for Sandro Orsini. I wonder what's the issue right there, because he's basically just driven straight off the track and decided to pull it back for an extra outlap. Here Chris Boland is going to be on his first flyer, and he's going to have the advantage of being, at least from what I can see so far, completely uninterrupted on track here. Track conditions, of course, important to get a look of those as well. Air temp all the way down to 19 degrees, but a track temp of 30 degrees centigrade, though we would expect that with the low air temp and the sort of cloudy conditions that seem to be prevalent now to drop over the course of the race. Virtual Racing Compound Ferrari, I think that might just be, well, that's either Nick Mclaughlin or Pete Plastow in the blue team. But let's see what Boland does here on his first flying lap of this qualifying session. So you'll see the endurance lights, as they're called, on this Lamborghini, and that's I've always thought maybe a little bit unnecessary. We've seen a lot of times coming in here very, very close to one another. Nick Mclaughlin provisionally quickest there. Boland, I think, messes up his first sector. That's going to be a lap lost for him. Mclaughlin quickest on the opening lap so far. About a tenth of a second ahead of Pete Plastow. Then very close is Osman Sert in his Lamborghini in the 66 car. And then the aforementioned Chris Boland, Gaston Maceroni there in the Audi. Matthew Forrest, though, not really making wonders of it on his first lap. He'll be hoping for better luck. A little bit of traction loss coming onto the back straight and heavy traffic up ahead. And that's not gonna make it much easier to get that quick lap in. That looked more like someone trying to line up a lap than someone trying to finish one. That is just the issue of traffic being all too apparent here. Alfredo Tricorici, by the way, quickest of the AM drivers here early days. He's in the pits at the moment, but he's good with his time. 9th overall, AM class leader ahead of Orkun Kolak. Both of those drivers quicker than Matthew Forrest on his opening lap, but somebody's had a bit of a spin, and I wonder if that is indeed Matthew Maddox. Yes, it is, the 720 Porsche. Who goes around, I was just about to say keeps it on track, but actually wisely backs it off the rubber. Here is Chris Pio. And behind him, I think that is the Porsche. Is that the Porsche of... No, that's not a Porsche. It's a Lambo and a Ferrari. Goes to show it isn't that easy to spot him at all times. And Martin de Jong from the Still There Racing team. And I think I made the joke last time out as well, but every time I see the D of De put in there, it reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer goes through all kinds of ordeals to find out what the J in his middle name stands for, and he goes on to find out that it actually stands for J. It's a great episode indeed, lovely Simpsons stuff. Back to the racing, or back to the qualifying that is happening in front of our eyes at the moment. Just to see who's coming through here. Osman Sert and Plastow as well, closing in on another lap. Chris Boland trying to heat up the tires. He got to make sure that he's not in the way whatsoever there. Mclaughlin on an out lap. Cody Steeks out to get a lap in. And Pete Plastow pulls into the pit here. Close to the halfway mark, so it might make sense to come in for a sort of a second run here. From the Brit, provisionally third. Maceroni does the very same thing here. Chris Boland, I think, might have been hampered a little bit by the traffic there. Yeah, and that's a lap gone for Chris Boland, I'm afraid. He's gonna push on. Oh no, I don't think he's gonna push on from that. We're gonna see. I think that might have been an off track. Just going too far. I'm pushing a little too hard on the exit. Not a particularly great exit in any sense either way for Chris Boland, who does indeed peel off this lap. It just goes to show how hard it can be to get that lap in with all these cars on track. Got Sissler there in 24th at the moment. Matthew Maddox, who had that spin, in 25th. And then two more cars still to have put in their first lap, and that is Sander Kaffer and Remco Barlow. So, even though we've seen bigger grids, I'm not going to say it's a small grid by any size, as Chris Boland taps the wall as well there. 27 cars around Road Atlanta is certainly going to make it enough to have a busy track. You gotta wonder if Chris Boland might have been finding himself a little bit angry that he didn't make better use of the clear opening lap that he had. Back with Chris Pio we are, as he comes around to complete a lap in the Ford GT home track, home field advantage. And an interesting point that I haven't made so far, of course, is that this is indeed a fixed setup round, meaning that no one's really going to have the ability to tinker with anything whatsoever. And that might be why we're seeing the Lamborghinis there a little bit twitchy, a little bit difficult to handle in the end here. Nick Mclaughlin on his last lap did put in a flyer indeed with that 1:17.64. He's on an out lap now. Trying to go for another fast run as we're in towards the final 5 minutes of qualifying. The 5 minutes that, of course, will decide the running order for the 45 minutes of racing that we'll have at hand afterwards. The tried and tested VRS GT3 Sprint setup, if you will. with 45 minutes of racing, a fuel cap of 50%, meaning that we'll see drivers coming in for that pit stop around the half-hour mark of the race. Or usually we do, but there's obviously going to be an open pit stop window as well, so a little bit of room to play with there for the drivers as Nick Mclaughlin sets off to do another hot lap. And let's see just how the Canadian gets around this time. Meanwhile, it's still, well, it's Trickerici here in the car and the Audi behind. Fastest of the AM drivers ahead of Aydin Atterberg, Sander Kaffer and Stuart Jacklin. Sander Kaffer there with a very decent pace. Nicolas Cucato 8th at the moment. He would like to improve, I think, for sure. Same would go for Matthew Forrest. And up ahead there's still Nick Mclaughlin, looking to improve. Sector 1 certainly looking good for Mclaughlin there. No real improvement there from Mclaughlin. It's about a 10th off of his personal best. Pete Plastow, though, with a very decent 1:17.69. That's only about half a 10th off of Mclaughlin, though. So the two Ferraris seem to be going very well here. I wonder if he's had a bit of contact with something or someone. Might have been a curb though as well causing that, but the right-hand bumper on the front of the car has a slight bit of damage to it. I wonder just how much that's gonna hamper Plastow in the end here. Remco Barlow with a very decent time as well. 1:17.72, that's about 100th of a second quicker than Osman Sert. Sert, who's on an outlap now to push at this late stage of the session. Here he is, the Turk, who did indeed come through and have a storming debut. Has found life slightly more challenging than the races that's come to follow. Cucato up into 5th place there with his last lap. His fastest of the session so far as well, so things are happening. Boland there in 7th place at the moment, not really seeming to find the Lamborghini or the track maybe, or any sort of combination of the two to his liking. At least he's not been able to extract that pure pace as we've seen him do so many times in this car this season. But of course, one thing is qualifying. The race is a very, very different spectacle. And one thing there is to say about it here at Road Atlanta is that it's a difficult place to start a race cleanly. You often find a very messy opening lap down through the S's. That entire first opening sector on cold tires as well. Even the first corner and turns 2 and 3. The blind crest coming in here. Anybody trying to get advantageous or adventurous indeed might just find themselves being punished here into the final minute of qualifying. Chris Boland not finding any improvements on his last lap around. Still 7th. Chris Roberts is 8th at the moment. And Matthew Forrest, our reigning champ, 12th place so far here. I think he will be very anxious to just try and squeeze out a bit more. 25 seconds. I wonder if he's going to make another time in this provisional pole for Osman Sert. with a 1:17.534, and somebody's had a crash just next to the camera here, I'm afraid. I think that might have been Remco Barlow, maybe Gaston Maceroni. Just gonna see real quick. I think that's gonna be Maceroni indeed. Yeah, that's what we must have heard. There comes Matthew Forrest. I don't think there was any improvement for Forrest. No, there wasn't. Get hit from behind there, though. Nicolas Cucato. I think he's on a flying lap. Just about made it through, sitting 5th at the moment. Surely he would love to find that bit of an improvement as well. Here as the track clears up. Often as we see, not that many drivers going on into the late moments of the qualifying session. Nicolas Cucato, one of them here for Virtua Racing. Oh, finding a bit of slide, maybe. The car rotating a bit more than he wanted to, and he's gonna call off the lap in the end. See Chris Roberts here, if he's gonna do the same. I don't think he's gonna be on a counting lap. Regardless, that sort of must be an in-lap. Here's Stuart Jacklin. Oh, I think actually that was a counting lap for Stuart Jacklin. And Giambattista Giacchetti there with an improvement in the very dying moments of the session to put himself in 7th in the AM standings. And I think that aside from Chris Roberts, who's making his way towards the pits at the moment, he's coming into this final chicane here. That will be the last of the drivers indeed. And as such, it's going to take us to the next point, which is of course the grid order, which I'm going to fling on screen immediately. Osman Sir taking pole position there by a 1/10 of a second or so, ahead of Nick Mclaughlin, row 2, consisting of Pete Plasto and Remco Barlow, with Nicolas Cucato and Gaston Maceroni, the 2 Argentine drivers, on row 3. Chris Boland and Chris Roberts, so it's a row of Chris there on the 4th row of cars, with Jorge Pinero and Sander Kaffa. In 10th place then, Nuno Vinagre 11th, ahead of Matthew Forrest. A little bit of a surprise to see Forrest so relatively far down the order indeed. Then Alfredo Trigorici in 13th place, ahead of Edinkan Atterberg. Then Martin de Jong and Orkun Kolab. Martin de Jong there in 15th place on the grid. He's not going to be too happy about that, I'm afraid, as well. Stuart Jacklin and Matt Sisler is on the 9th row of cars, ahead of Giambattista Giacchetti and Robert van den Heuvel there in 20th place. Lee Tucker 21st, ahead of M-Class Championship leader Cody Steek there. He's going to have a bit of fighting on his hands, I think. Then Stephen Orrell and Chris Pio in the Ford GT. And rounding off the field indeed is Craig Thompson, Matthew Mannix, and Sandro Orsini. With that said, I think we are getting close indeed to our formation lap. And it also looks to me like we might just have a full formation lap on our hands here at Road Atlanta. I'm not sure if there is a short option, obviously not the longest track in the world. So we'll certainly be able to make do with it. But as I touched upon before, it's always a challenge when you're that many cars. Turn 1 in itself, but the combination of the left kink turn 2 and then into turn 3, as we see here, this one usually causes a bit of chaos. And this entire next section as well, because it's so easy to think that you have a run on someone, but executing a clean overtake down here is nigh on impossible unless a mistake is made. And that presents dangers of its own, if you will. So definitely a place to keep your eyes open, especially on the opening few laps of a race like this. And actually, traditionally, the double right-handers that the drivers come up against now is actually one of the better overtaking opportunities as well. Obviously, the only thing being a little bit problematic with it is that big long straight. You get right back on after the hairpin here, and which obviously is going to give anyone in the slipstream behind a good chance of getting a run back at the car ahead. Especially in these GT3s, the lower speeds compared to, say, some of the prototypes you find racing here just seems to make the straight a little bit longer. At least they travel on it for longer, and there's a little bit extra space and time to actually race one another. But anyway, down towards the chicane, for one final time before we get the race underway. We'll have the safety car peeling off into the pits towards the right, and it'll be Osman Sert in control of the field. It'll go underneath the bridge, down the hill, and off we will go, and we'll see who gets the run. The Ferraris of Mclaughlin and Plastow certainly has looked racy so far, and I think that's an early go there from Osman Sert. And he's got the jump on more or less everybody in behind there. Mclaughlin, Plastow, Barlow, and then Cucato. So the same order as we saw before. And so far, I think everybody's managed to get safely through the opening few turns. Osman Sert there, very good start for him as well. So we get just the slightly wider shot on the cars as much as possible here. The two virtual racing Audis involved in a bit of a tussle with one another. That's Nicolas Cucato now ahead of Gaston Maceroni, but it's as they were all the way down to Jorge Pinero here. And now, as I say that, Pete Plastow just made that move on Nick Mclaughlin. I think he's going to make it stick all the way down the back straight here. Now, though, comes the slipstream. The slight kink to the right. And then they're closing in on the braking zone. Mclaughlin's not going to go for it on his teammate, though. And further down, a bit of action here as well, as I think that was actually Chris Boland who got passed by Gaston Maceroni there. I mean, repassed. He might have done him back. Craig Thompson through on Chris Pio here. Sander Kaffa is the AM class leader. He's done a good start. Tricorici second there, and Martin de Jong's making his way through the field as well. Matt Sisseler. Actually, Matt Sisseler just took that position away from Tricorici, so it's Sisseler ahead of Tricorici. And then Matthew Forrest makes it in with the AM class drivers here, the reigning champ. Could be also many explanations for finding yourself on such a lack of pace for a weekend, but it's certainly not going to be a nice one for him, I'm afraid. Good pace over the opening laps here from Pete Plastow, not letting Osman Sert run away with it. They'll be wise to stay on top of the Turk as well as possible. He's already out of the slipstream though, so it's going to be somewhat an advantage. Actually quite the large advantage for Osman Sert. Here's Nuno Vinagre. He's on the tail of Chris Roberts. And both of those are chasing down these two Lamborghinis. Jorge Pinero, who wants to get the better of Chris Boland, the championship leader, obviously has to bite his tongue. Look at the Lamborghini just getting a little bit twitchy into turn 3. And it's always been a tricky braking zone as you crest the hill basically just before the entrance of the corner. It's so easy to have the car come unstable under braking, which is seemingly what happened to Chris Boland there. He's not getting dropped though by Gaston Maceroni. There's a bit of a gap there up to Cucato, Barlow, and the rest of them. And then further down the field, there's a bit of a tight fight as well here between Stuart Jacklin and Rob the Lobster. And that beautiful Golf Porsche. I'm afraid Rob the Lobster has lost 2 positions. Of course, it's being a lovely nickname indeed for Robert Vandenheuvel. Vandenheuvel is going to be... Actually, it's Jacklin also looking at the rear end of... Oh, and Cody Steek almost causing a bit of a calamity there, I'm afraid, but he just got himself out of it. 11th for the points leader as well. Mind you, it wasn't a big difference coming into this race on points in the AM standings. New fastest lap as well for Osman Cert, who's certainly assertifying his his dominance at the moment, at least. Gap's almost up to 2 seconds for him here. Gaston Maceroni's gonna have his hands full with Chris Boland on charge in the Lamborghini and almost contact. They might just have touched one another ever so slightly. Certainly it's gonna be no love lost, and there's a bit of a train as well forming up behind Gaston Maceroni, so it seems to be a bit of a challenge for some of the other drivers getting past his Audi. But at the same time, everybody in behind seems to be more than capable of getting... Oh, and there's a squeeze, and look at Boland getting squeezed onto the gravel there. That was very, very hefty racing there. Argy-bargy, to say the very least, between the two. I'll see. I'm just gonna look if we can find another look at it, but I don't think there was either an off-track or anything. Here comes another move from Chris Boland, at least a good old look there into turn 1. It's a much better look here as we go on board with the Lamborghini. Another touch to the Audi. 2 touches, he's gonna send him wide. Nope. Well held from Gaston Maceroni, but the blood is reaching boiling point here, I'm afraid. And somebody's gonna have to take it easy if this isn't gonna have to, well, end in tears at the end of it, I'm afraid. Look at Martin de Jong there. He's made up 4 places. One of the high jumpers of the field so far. After not really being able to find his melody in qualifying, he's done much better of it here in the opening parts of the race. But a surprisingly static top 8 with only Pete Plastow and Nick Mclaughlin switching positions early on. And aside from that, it's basically the top 9 as they started out. Chris Boland surely would love to change that and sooner rather than later. Because he does have the speed advantage, it seems, on Gaston Maceroni at the moment, but he's not been able to get past the Argentine driver. I'm afraid we've had a bit of a moment for Sandro Orsini, but we'll have to watch this situation behind as Jorge Pinero is basically bump drafting Chris Roberts along. Up ahead might just be action time as well for Chris Boland, who's trying to get the nose in on that Audi ahead. Late on the brakes, but not late enough. Oh, and they go deep into the corner, both of them. And it lost a bit of time battling it out. And there is Martin de Jong. Oh, and what's happened to Osman Sert? Osman Sert is off the leader. All on his own, I think. And Jorge Pinero has crashed as well. Look at this. Osman Sert picks up the gravel there and heads to meet the wall. Spinning his wheels. But knowing that he can't just throw it around like that. Oh, and he's gonna have to be very careful with his rejoin here as well. Meanwhile, here's the issue that befell Jorge Pinero in his Lamborghini. That's not a safe place to be as well, and I think Pinero knows this all too well. Osman Sert now in 23rd position, and that's left Pete Plastow in the lead ahead of Nick Mclaughlin. Remco Barlow still very much in with the shout there, and then it's about 4.5 seconds down to Nicolas Cucazzo. Another few seconds down to his teammate Gaston Maceroni, who's now got a little bit of breathing space again, down to Chris Boland. I think that's only a matter of time. And then here is the aforementioned Jorge Pinero, who had a bit of a moment, but managed to get his car out of it alive. He's got a bit of a fight-back mission going on as he passes Cody Steek bravely into turn 3. Martin de Jong, by the way, has gotten through as well on Matthew Forrest. So what a nice drive there from Martin de Jong into 9th place. Already just over 10 minutes into the race here. So still more time to add up an unprovoked error. Oh, and another unprovoked error. Speaking about it, Nuno Vinagre. He's spun on his own. He's planted his Porsche directly into the concrete foundation of the bridge there. And that's major damage for him, I'm afraid. Matthew Forrest got through on Martin de Jong there. Chris Roberts. There's Boland. Maceroni still ahead of these. But of course, everybody's moved up a position through all of that. Orkun Kolak went off as well alongside Nuno Vinagre, but that was something completely different, I think. All the way down in the chicane here, this was Kolak. For racetracknotes.app. That was that long problem for Nuno Vinagre. I'm not sure that he's gonna be... Oh no, that car's gonna be done, I'm afraid. It's race over, or so it looks at least. Here's Chris Boland yet again, trying to get his nose far enough along the Audi of Gaston Maceroni. But right now it's advantage Nicolas Cucazzo. We'll see if it stays that way for another good 30 minutes and a few. But so far, it's been, dare I say it, a little bit dull, until of course it isn't. Sander Kaffe, by the way, still does a very good job of leading the way in AM. Just ahead of Matt Sissler, not by much. Someone just had a major lock-up, and it's Chris Boland, the championship leader, and it's turn 3, and it's been pipped by the other Chris. That's Chris Roberts. He's tapped the soft barrier. He's got it running quickly again. That could have been worse, but he's in a bad position. He's just gonna wonder if the car took any damage from that situation. Just another look at it here. Losing it all by himself, and then just a slight helping hand, of course. Chris Roberts couldn't do much about that as well. Which means that as it stands, Nicolas Cucazzo is in a position to really gain big time from this. If he can keep it on, that is, of course. Here's the battle for the third and final podium place in AM, which is Alfredo Tricarici and Giambattista Giachetti. Giachetti is doing a good job. He's been hounding the Audi, I think, and chasing it down over a few laps now. So seems to be consistently at least a little bit quicker. But whether he can translate that into an overtake, we will have to see. Here's Osman Sert, who even with the damage on his car, still running, trying to claw back something, anything from this race series now. Behind the Lamborghini of Lee Tucker, who suffers, I'm afraid. But looks to be the curse of the commentator in that situation. We'll see if we can have another look at just what happened. Yeah, all on its own, I'm afraid. Lee Tucker just losing the rear. Perhaps finding the heat a little too much. Maybe not really to his liking. The two Dutchmen having a bit of a surprising fight with Martin de Jong under pressure from Sander Kaffe here. 15 minutes almost past here, so out of a third of the way through the race. And Matthew Forrest up into 7th place in his Lamborghini. I think he might just take whatever points is gonna fall off and land in front of him today. It looks like it might just be one of those attritional days out there. At the head of the field, we haven't paid him too much notice, but perhaps we should. It's Pete Plastow. He's doing a very good job of keeping it cool alongside Nick Mclaughlin. Remco Barlow, they're about just outside of the slipstream range of the two Ferraris. And that behind, by the way, is of course not Nicolas Cucato. Who's a little bit further down the track. There he is, the Argentine, another Argentine there in Gaston Mazzaroni, and then Chris Roberts. This here, Stephen Orrell with Jorge Pinero. Pinero just went past. Of course, these inter-class battles are sometimes a little less heavily contested, but Orrell is giving no extra space to Jorge Pinero there. Oh, and someone's just gone straight off there. That's Osman Sert. And I wonder if it's some kind of hardware failure. No, he's just lost it and then onto the grass. And I think he's just about managed not to hit anything there, but he's gonna be hit with a major slowdown penalty for that infringement. Mclaughlin's getting closer at the head of the field. Seems to just calm down ever so slightly here. Of course, a good time as any to plug our sponsors a bit here. Of course, Grip Engineering provides you with solutions from the real world of racing applied to your simulator indeed. So if you're looking for just that extra speed, that extra bit of track knowledge or whatever, Grip Engineering will be your go-to crew. And there is a 25% discount. I do believe there is a link in the description below to Grip Engineering as well. And of course we do have SIMRACER coin, claims to be the leading cryptocurrency, developed specifically with the sim racing in mind, which offers up a lot of possibilities and opportunities with just how you set up championships, prize money, etc. And of course you can find a link to SIMRACER's coin or SIMRACER coin, I'm sorry, of course, in the description as well. Chris Roberts, back to the racing here, just losing a bit of time to Gaston Maceroni. Actually, looks like he's actually coming back in his Porsche, which is not a bad going at all. Out ahead, Plastow still keeps it cool, with Nick Mclaughlin trying to get the better of his teammate. And 20 minutes into the race as well, we will see the pit window open up in just about a few minutes from now, I think. Although I wouldn't expect anyone to come in that early. Usually doesn't really make sense to cut the stint short unless you're in really heavy traffic. Oh, Orkan Kolak gets a poor run through there. It's nice to see they fixed the camera position on the Mercedes as well. Oh, that's a bit of a moment. Kolak goes defensive. Oral's on the outside. He's going to wait for the cutback to maybe open up. Looks like the Merc's a bit loose on the braking, but keeps a very, very tidy line. And certainly keeps Orkan Kolak honest. There's Osman Sert coming back as well. They're all getting a bit janky. Not too good there for Osman Sert. Well, it certainly did earlier when he was on pole position leading the race. But it's that kind of unforced error that you just want to make sure that you don't make here. Stephen Oral makes a bit of a mistake of his own. He's going to open the door for Osman Sert to go around the outside. And around the outside he goes indeed. That's a bit of breathing space for Atterberg ahead. Cody Steek comes into the pits, I'm sorry. And his Mercedes, it does so from what I think is 9th in the AM standings. Plastow, Mclaughlin, and then Remco Barlow has been getting closer and closer as well. Sitting in a good position there in 3rd. It'll be interesting to see if he can take advantage of the pit stop round. It's not a lot of time he has to win on the 2 cars ahead, as we're slowly but surely approaching the halfway mark of this race. Still not expecting anyone to come in here. But Nick Mclaughlin has lost a bit of pace over the last lap or so. And would you believe it, they're hitting some traffic as well. So just how they're going to clear this traffic as well, it's going to mean quite a lot. That's of course Cody Steek, who just came from his pit stop. One of the first movers. Not the best of exits there from Mclaughlin. And he's going to come under some real pressure from that BMW down towards the chicane. Might be lucky when he has that bit of slipstream ahead of himself. Seems to have gotten a better run through the chicane here. And oh my word, there's some real action here as well. And that is Kukato, just ahead of Gaston Maceroni there in 5th place. Then Chris Roberts and Matthew Forrest in 7th. Looking at that Porsche, Chris Roberts is... oh, that's some aggressive defending. Mclaughlin goes into the pits here. So that's interesting. Early pit stop from Nick Mclaughlin. We'll see whether he'll be able to take advantage of that. Matt Forrest goes in as well. Must be frustrating for Chris Roberts, seeing that he clearly has a pace advantage on the Audi. He's really able to attack, and you can see he's just being held up ever so slightly. And ever so slightly at the moment might be an understatement here. I don't know if the Porsche just lacks that little bit of top-end speed compared to the Audi in terms of making that overtake stick. It's certainly a known thing that the Porsche 911 tends to be a little bit slower on top speed. Someone's had a problem there as well. I wonder. That's Chris Boland. Yeah, that is. Wonder what happened to Boland here. He's had another incident? I think he has. Let's see here. Chris Boland. He was looking all fine and dandy. He touched that. Bonk. That was a heavy hit as well. From 20th place, so basically he went and did exactly what befell Osman Sert. Osman Sert was back up into 13th place here. Plastow comes into the pits now. Barlow takes over the race lead, but of course he is yet to make his pit stop. There is Pete Plastow, there's Matt Sisler. Plastow maybe just trying to cover off Nick Mclaughlin, basically. He's being held up, I think, by some of the AMP drivers that might fall to the advantage of him here. Plastow's leaving the pits, but I think actually Mclaughlin might just have gotten the jump. No, that's going to be closer than close. Up towards turn 3 they come. It's just about worked up for Pete Plastow. Just about covering Nick Mclaughlin, but only just 25 minutes into this race. And now the question is, if any sort of battling comes up for these two and between these two, they're gonna get held up so badly here. Just about that. I think that's in that Porsche there. I think that's that gets, you know, he's in the Ferrari of Gabbiano. So he's in the Gabbiano Porsche. That's Sandro Orsini, the Italian. And they're both just gonna come straight on through. Into the pits comes Nicolas Cocazzo, Gaston Meseroni, Chris Roberts, Martin de Jong as well. Jorge Pinero is in, and that means that a lot of these drivers are going to be swapped back in the rightful running order, might you say. Matt Forrest has had his pit stop as well, and he might just jump a bunch of guys. Here comes Cocazzo exiting. Forrest is going to be really close. He's going to get the better of the bunch of them here. Matt Forrest, brilliant strat to come out in what could effectively be 4th place, but we'll just have to see how it goes with the rest of the drivers still having to do their pit stops. A lot of them at the top though there. That's Remco Barlow coming in now. And then we'll have Sander Kaffer, Matt Sisler, and Aydin Kanatenberg, the 3 leading AM cars, leading the overall picture in the race. Here is Barlow in the pits, whereas Pete Plastow, he's coming down towards the chicane, chasing down the Ford GT of Chris Pio. He's got about 7 seconds of his pit stop to go, as I say that, but that took me almost 7 seconds to say. And Barlow is moving. And that is going to be a very close call, but I think Remco Barlow will just about, he's done it. He's jumped both Plastow and Nick Mclaughlin on that pit stop round. He's come out ahead in the lead with just over 15 minutes left of the race here. That is perfect timing for Remco Barlow. Then it's Cocazzo Matt Forrest up into 5th place here ahead of Chris Roberts. Gaston Maceroni, who got jumped by Chris Roberts as well. And then Martin de Jong in 8th place. With that, everybody has been in the pits except for Chris Boland, I'm afraid, who's in again for another stop. So a relatively disastrous round, I'm afraid, for Chris Boland. So far, it's not been the best of rounds from Nicolas Cucato, but he can take whatever, and it'll be enough here to score him a good points haul. And so far, it's looking really good for Remco Barlow, but he's come out just ahead of Plastow and Mclaughlin. And while it worked for Plastow to cover off Mclaughlin, they've both been jumped by the Dutchman ahead. And now it's up to, well, both of them really as well, to see if they can come up with a solution to the problem at hand. And it looks like Remco Barlow's on a good bit of pace here as well. Not in any way an easy driver to contend with. Seems to do so well here at Road Atlanta. And we'll see if he can hang on to that lead for the next 15 minutes to claim his first win of the season. More action brewing here as Matthew Forrest is trying to get the better of Nicolas Cucato. And he might as well. He came from a long way back, starting in 12th place there, Matthew Forrest. And certainly he's had a nice run through it and almost making contact with the rear end of the Audi there. Looked a little too close for comfort, if you ask me. Gets a good run though through the final bend. I think he knows that turn 1 isn't the place to really try and stick it. But if you can get alongside, turn 3 could be the place. Nope. And then it's just about hanging on basically, if you can, until the end of the straight. Oh, look at that. That's Martin de Jong getting past on Sander Kaffe there, I think. Or so it looked, at least. Maybe just a bit of a scent, but the two were certainly side by side for a moment. It got hot. Here is Cucato, Matthew Forrest, and Chris Roberts. And there's a bit of contact. Oh, and Roberts makes contact with the Porsche. I think that's Sandro Orsini, it is. The two drivers ahead just about managed to avoid him. Here is the incident for Orsini, who goes off, comes back onto the track. Nowhere to go for Chris Roberts. And Maceroni, of course, passing Roberts in that instant as well. Or afterwards, actually. Quite a bit afterwards. Orsini's jumped to the pits. Now it's a fight that's very much still raging, but it's between Nicolas Cucato and Matthew Forrest. And here comes Forrest up the inside. Cucato's trying to fight it. I'm not sure that's the wisest thing to do here. Forrest is on the outside with the pace momentum, and they're just about neck and neck here. Kokato with the inside line. That holds out for now. But that can't hold forever, I'm afraid. As the reigning champ wants to show, and he certainly still has the pace. Up ahead, it's Pete Plastow, who's now trying to find a way through here on Remco Barlow, and whether or not that's going to work out for him, well, we'll have to see. He's certainly close. I don't think he's close enough there. Barlow going slightly defensive, just closing off the track in the braking zone. Intelligent driving from the Dutchman. Another attempt or another look from Plastow, but he's a little too far away. It doesn't seem like the Ferrari really has the speed mid-corner. To me, it's a bit better in the faster bits of the track there. Plastow really having to send it, but send it he does. And they've gotten rid of Nicola, or of Nick Mclaughlin. Nicolas Kokato, of course. Still further back, 20 seconds off of the leading trio, these drivers. Macerone has been let back into it as well. So it's still a three-way scrap as well for fourth. We'll see just what happens with that. Chris Roberts is in the pits now. Both of the leaders clear the M-Class Lambo, and a huge bit of inroad there made by Pete Plastow in the chicane alone. He's got a good run this time around, and it's a short straight down to turn one, and it's certainly not going to be enough. The BMW with plenty of grunt as well. And then Jorge Pinero, oh my word, has had a major incident. And how on earth did he end up in there? And I have absolutely no clue what happened to the Portuguese driver. Still, as it was standing, as it stood, if you will, and as it stands, Remco Barlow. Oh, Plastow just with a touch of the grass there, I think, on the exit. That might have compromised him a little bit. The pressure is certainly there. Top three drivers on very similar pace at the moment. Actually, I think the closest two fights, I was just about to say, are the two fights for the lead. That's not quite true, because Sander Kaffer still on the tail of Martin de Jong. Sander Kaffer has done a brilliant job of just controlling this race in the AM field so far. It's another Dutchman and his teammate as well, currently leading in pro, although nothing is settled. We're well into the final 10 minutes of racing, and we'll see just how this one pans out. Stephen Orrell, I'm afraid, has had a problem. See what happened to him. Oh, he loses it coming into the chicane. And that is not a good way to find it parked. He touches the wall as well. Again, Plastow, we've seen him close here before. He just hasn't really been able to get close enough in order to really get the better of Remco Barlow for the lead of the race. And it's becoming evident that if it's gonna happen, it's gonna be a late one indeed. So we're just gonna have to see. Actually, just flinging a look to the calendar as well. An interesting one that we've got the American leg of the calendar rounding it off. The final 4 rounds of the championship taking place, not just in part, but in its entirety. If I could just talk as well. Oh god. Over there. So we got Road Atlanta tonight. We've got Watkins Glen coming out on the 29th of May. And then on the 12th of June, we'll be going to Road America for rounding off the season at Sebring on the 26th of June. That is some of the best GT tracks around, if you ask me as well. Certainly a worthy ending to the championship. There's Giambattista Giacchetti and Ken Atterberg. Atterberg in the Ferrari. So is Giacchetti. The Gabbiano Ferrari there, sitting third at the moment in a very good position. Be trying to claw that position home in the best way he can. Now again here, Remco Barlow, as we go on board. Are we going to see a late dive from Pete Plastow? Not this time around. But he knows that he'll have a few more laps to attempt it in, although he cannot take forever as well. And I think the Brit knows that. Oh, this time around he's got a very good run as well. He's getting parked on the outside by Remco Barlow, so this is all about the cutback here. If Pete Plastow can make this work, it'll be a brilliant one for him. But it works for nothing but keeping him close, within striking distance. He needs to do that, but he needs to do a little bit more than that as well. Oh, and Gaston Maceroni has had a problem. Oh, and he's collided. He's collided with Matthew Forrest, I think. Cody Steek has had a bit of a moment as well, but Matthew Forrest and Gaston Maceroni here into the chicane they come. Forrest on the inside and they touch. And Maceroni must have gone past on Forrest before that. Here he comes. So indeed on the straight, Maceroni with the slipstream of his teammate up ahead. Forrest trying to defend it. Ah, he's got nowhere to go there, Matthew, does he? And he's sort of gotten turned into by Gaston Maceroni. And they're still going at it though. They got held them in behind. Now Sander Kaffa, who's got into 6th place overall. Mark Young is up into the podium positions. That's very nice for him as well. And up ahead, Remco Barlow is now beginning to draw out an advantage that with 2.5 minutes of racing left could just be, not saying it is, but it could be the decisive advantage. Here comes Maceroni, jinks it left, right, and center. Wants to go around Matthew Forrest. He does so, but I think Forrest is going to try to send it back. No, he doesn't. And there's a Lambo on the outside. And that's Usman Sert. Wow, Sert really with a strong comeback here. Matthew Forrest, who was doing such a good job of just letting the race come to him, now he's found himself in a heavy-handed fight as well with Gaston Maceroni yet again. Not the first time we've seen it this season. Maceroni doing a very good job so far. Although I would say that might have been a bit of squeezing Matthew Forrest on their incident before. Forrest definitely gonna keep him honest for the final positions here. Over the final few minutes, there's a look from Osman Serd, who muscles up the inside of Matthew Forrest and is not having any of it as they touch. Quite sure he's gonna be too excited about that. Sandro's Orsini, I'm afraid, has had a bit of a problem. It's Remco Barlow, though, still holding on as we're into the final minute. Orsini's had to come to a complete standstill. Here's Atterberg, still trying to get the better of Giambattista Giachetti. Giachetti who fights it and holds it. Yes. So he does through the chicane. New fastest lap for Nick Mclaughlin. But I don't think that's going to work out wonders for him at this point in the race. He's just too far back. And Remco Barlow, the clock is just about to run out, but 20 seconds. He's gonna make it across the line for one more lap. Half a second is the advantage. Oh, and Matthew Forrest has come around again for some reason. I think this time it's been all his own making. Goes too far off, gets the car unsettled, comes around. Heavy impact with the concrete barrier up towards the double right-hander. And that's going to be a sad way to end his race as well, I'm afraid. Remco Barlow looking to hold on. It's 0.8 of a second between himself and Pete Plastow. The closest two cars on track is indeed the battle for the lead, as he's just janking it left and right, not wanting Plastow to get too much in the slipstream, but he should be okay here, Remco Barlow. Unless he has some kind of freak incident of runs out of fuel or something, he's gonna take the win. And so he does. Remco Barlow for Block It Like It's Hot wins Road 7 at Road Atlanta ahead of Pete Plastow. And his teammate Nick Mclaughlin taking the third and final podium step in the pro ranks. Following them in here is Nicolas Cocato, who's going to get 4th place ahead of Martin de Jong. Dutchman in the Ford GT right about there. And then Sander Kaffer, who's done a perfect race to take the AM win as well. And make it a double win for Block It Like It's Hot. A beautiful night for them indeed. And what a race it's been. There's been a bit of a dramatic finale because they're still fighting here. Sissler has taken 2nd. Giachetti got there as well and grabbed a hold of that 3rd place. He held on to it ahead of Aydin Atterberg. And then we're just waiting for the rest of them to finish in. Cody Steeg, the AM class leader coming into this race, finished 6th in the end. Tricorici, I think, would be the final car running. Held on for top spots there in AM for a long time, but just couldn't make it last. And he goes across the line. And I think indeed that's going to lead us into the results. There it is. Remco Barlow takes the win in pro ahead of Pete Plastow and Nick Mclaughlin. Then Nicolas Cocato in 4th place ahead of Martin de Jong and Gaston Meseroni in 6th place. Followed by Osman Serd, Matthew Forrest, Chris Boland, another Chris and Chris Roberts, then Jorge Pinero and Nuno Vinagre in 12th place there in pro. In AM, it is a win for Sander Kaffer, 10 seconds clear of Matt Sissler there in 2nd, and Giambattista Giachetti in 3rd place. for Team Gabbiano. Then Aydin Karnatterberg, Orkun Kolak, and Cody Steek in 6th, ahead of Alfredo Trigorici, Stephen Orrell, Craig Thompson, and Lee Tucker. Stuart Jacklin 11th, ahead of Chris Pio, Robert van den Heuvel, Sandro Orsini, and Matthew Maddox as well. And with that said, let's get the music playing again and see if we can just get a few drivers in for maybe a bit of an interview here post-race, if anyone's in. If not, well, that's what it is. I'm expecting to see a few wanting to have a chat. And indeed, a few wanting to have a chat there is. And I'll do a rare thing here with the should probably get my Discord unmuted here. I'll do a rare thing here with a double interview, but we've got 2 winners in 2 classes from one team. It's Remco Barlow and Sander Kappa. Welcome, gentlemen. And I can say the same to both of you. I think brilliant performance, very good drive, and congratulations with the wins. What caused this certain upturn of luck for you guys in this race?
Well, first of all, thank you. I don't know. Road Atlanta is one of my favorite tracks, so I knew that I had some pace here, and I decided to go with the fuel tactics, so fuel saving in the out lap and then 1 extra lap, etc. And it worked very well for me. I jumped them both in the pits, so happy with that.
And it's been a lot of races where it's been almost, and you've been so close to getting that big result, but it hasn't worked out for you yet until tonight, so it must be really satisfying to finally get that win.
Yeah, it really is. Before this, I also had a different league race, and I jumped straight into this one, so winning this one is it feels so good. It's so warm, I'm sweating.
And Sander, hopping over to you, 6th place overall, taking the class win aside. That's a very good performance on your part as well. It seemed to be a sort of a, now I'm not going to say too much here, it looked to be an easy cruise that sort of just, that's more a way to say well done, I guess. But I was expecting it to be a little more chaotic around those positions where you were sitting. Were you expecting that chaos to be worse than it was as well, coming into the race?
Yeah, I have to be honest, Hasse, I have the same feeling, but that's why I held back a bit in the beginning. So just let the pro drivers pass a bit and just cruise behind them. But I had some problems passing Martin, so I could probably have been a bit faster as well, so that was fun.
Yeah, indeed, and that's the thing we've seen before with when you have drivers from the 2 different classes sort of close to one another on track. It's sometimes a little bit awkward, but you seem to get along pretty well with Martin in those situations today.
Yeah, I think it's quite smart. We had a couple of other drivers go off track, so that's how we went up quite a bit. From I think I was at P11 at some place, and I think I was 6th, right?
Indeed, 6th place overall.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, in the end, gentlemen, a very good result to both of you and to the team. So, biggest of congratulations from me, and thanks for coming in, taking the time to have a chat before I let you off and let you go and celebrate the wins. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to here live on the air?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to give a shout out to my team, WPR Racing, of course, and SIMRACER, and also to everyone of Sunday GT Master for making this all possible, and also to you. Thank you, Hasse.
Yeah, I would like to thank the team hosting these races, and of course you for the excellent commentary. And I have to thank Martin for the clean racing. I couldn't pass him, so it was fun.
Well, thank you for the kind words as well, gentlemen. And with that said, it's been a great pleasure having you in, and I hope to get the chance to talk to you again after one of these final rounds of the season.
Also hope so. Thank you.
So that was indeed Remco Barlow and Sander Kappa. We're going to bring in a final interviewee. It's not going to be any of the podium finishers, but it's going to be a driver of a Ford GT. And that was a rhyme indeed. MC Hasse Rømer here. I've got Martin de Jong in the commentary booth with me for a bit of a chat here. Martin, thanks for taking the time to chat away. Not the best of qualifying sessions for you tonight, but certainly a race where you gain a lot of positions and must have found it pretty eventful driving around out there.
Yeah, I think eventful is understatement. Qualifying, I just couldn't get a single normal lap in, so it was really bad. I had something like, okay, this is going to get interesting during the race. And I only had one thing in my mind, keeping the car on the track. At the start, just trying to gain as much positions of the AM drivers as possible, and then just hanging in there. But yeah, the car was really a handful on the baseline around here. It was, I wouldn't say nearly impossible, but I think it killed me, almost killed me about 3-4 times.
Because that was almost answered the question I was about to ask, whether the Ford GT was a big mouthful to sort of handle here at Road Atlanta, because it is a tricky track indeed, and one that's known for causing chaos. So a relatively clean opening lap, but it was still attritional along the race. Were you expecting to make up the positions that you ended up making up and aiming for that top 5 finish?
No, absolutely not. At some point I was running 9th or 8th, and I had something like, okay, when I can finish here. I had Sander, so winner of the AM. Congratulations to him. On my tail the whole race. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I was expecting to finish P8, and yeah, when I saw Matt and Maceroni starting to fight again, I really was like, is it going to be? And yeah, they had come together again, and I think Chris Roberts had a issue with a backmarker, but I'm not sure. So running P8, in the end P5 with a bit of luck and unluck of the guys in front. But yeah, this was absolutely the most I could do.
Well, Martin, good work. Strong race, strong result in the end. And of course, thanks for taking the time to chat away with me here at post-race in the commentary booth. Before I let you off the hook, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Congratulations to Remco with winning Pro class and Sander with AM class. You're doing a stunning job as usual, and yeah, big thanks to the whole organization of the Sunday GT, and can't wait for the next one. Finally open setup again.
It's going to be a relief, I think, for a lot of drivers. Martin, thanks for taking the time. As I said, it's always a pleasure, and I hope to get the chance to chat to you again after one of these next races.
Let's hope so.
So that was Martin de Jong, our final interviewee, and that brings us to the concluding stages of this broadcast as well. And with that said, my apologies, a true live burp there. I tried to keep it down. I hope it wasn't too audible. But with that said, for me, Hasse Rømer, it's been a pleasure having you all along. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the virtual racing compound. We'll be back on the 29th of May, same time indeed, Sunday of course, as always, for Watkins Glen in the booth, and we'll see if we'll all get a nice kicking of one here in 2 weeks' time as the series goes on. But it's been another great night of racing here from Road Atlanta. I've been Hasse Rømer, and until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.